You've got questions, and I've got answers. Hi, I'm Kevin Eikenberry, answering the questions that new leaders ask us. Actually, it's our goal to help all leaders become more successful, productive, and confident. And today, we're answering a question about how to help your team when it's moving through a hurt. Are you ready? Let's go. Here's the question we received. How do you move a team from a stage of healing, from a severe hurt that all experienced, to enthusiastic devotion to the compelling mission? Well, it's a big question. We can probably only deal with half of it here. Let me just say this. We're going to talk about the dealing with the hurt part. But let me say that in the question is a lot of wisdom that you really do want to get people to move on to the compelling mission and get people on board with that. So you're exactly right with the question. Let's talk about the first part, because if you don't get the first part done, if you can't get the team through the hurt, you're never going to get them back to the rest, right? So we don't know what the cause of this hurt was. And in your organization, in your experience, you've probably got multiple things you could think of, or maybe that you're already thinking of, that it could be. What the hurt is doesn't really matter. But let me tell you a couple of mistakes that leaders make. One of the mistakes that they make is they say things, well, like, suck it up or shake it off. Well, you didn't just get hit by a softball. To shake it off probably isn't enough. Like, doing those things has a couple of problems. One is it minimizes the hurt, and it makes it seem like it shouldn't be any big deal, and it isn't any big deal to you, so the rest of you just need to figure it out. That's a mistake. Right? Here's what you really need to do as a leader. You need to provide a safe place for people to process the past. Let me say that again. You want to provide a safe place for people to process the past. So you're saying, okay, Kevin, that sounds good, but how do we do it? So I've got several things for you to do that, right? To get started and then to move forward. So first, acknowledge the hurt. The hurt is there. Here's the thing. No one else, there may be a situation where people are talking about it. But oftentimes it's out there, it's like the elephant in the room, no one's talking about it. As the leader, if you're willing to open up the conversation, if you're willing to say, hey, we really haven't talked about this and we ought to, acknowledge it, make it okay for people to talk about it, right? So acknowledging it, you don't have to, maybe you don't feel the hurt in the same way as everybody else. Maybe you were impacted differently, but you're aware that there's a situation. So you want to acknowledge it and get it out there. Second thing is to provide the time to talk. Everyone's going to say, well, the boss is busy or we're busy. So this could look like the whole team in a meeting and making a space for it, having a meeting for it specifically. It could be making sure that people have time and know that your door's open and you're available to them to come in individually to talk to you about the hurt. It's both of those. You got to provide the time, you got to make it okay, you got to let people know that you will make the time, etc. Third thing is to share yourself. To the degree you were hurt or the way that you were hurt, be willing to share some of that. If you're willing to be a little bit vulnerable, you make it okay for them and you get rid of some of the guilt they might be feeling. Say, well, I should be able to get past this, or maybe I'm the only one who's feeling this. So the more that we can do that, the better off we'll be. The next thing you want to do is to be patient. If it's a hurt of any size, that's the only kind we're talking about here, right? Something significant, which means that it's not going to be solved by one meeting, one conversation. It's going to take some time. Be a little bit patient. Now, you may say, how long is too long before people get over it? And that's a valid question. But my experience is that most people err on the side of wanting people to get over it really quick as opposed to too long the other way. Next, shift people to a future focus. We can't change the past. It's over. We can acknowledge it. We can talk about it. We can process it. And then we need to move on. So we want to shift the focus to the future. And then to the rest of the question, we want to end by being mission focused. This does two things. You want to get people back to or help remind them of the compelling mission. But guess what? When you do that, that helps us get past a hurt. I can think of lots of times in my life when I was sort of wallowing in or concerned about a situation, even if it was just a personal one for me. But once I reminded myself and got myself back on purpose, back on mission, it changed my attitude. It helped me to heal. It helped me to move forward. That is certainly true for us individually as well as for the team. So be mission focused. So I'm giving you a number of things to do. Your team is going to have situations where they get hurt, where there's disappointment, where there's frustration, or worse. those situations will come. It's our job as a leader to help the team move past it to become more productive than they were, and maybe even more productive than ever. Let's close with today's tweet. Before we can focus on the future, we must have a safe place to process the past. Leaders can provide that place. Now, I hope that this question was helpful to you, but more importantly, I hope the answer was helpful to you. And we provide these for that purpose, to give you support and encouragement and the like. And there's a lot more on this site that you can get that support, encouragement, resources for you, free resources of all sorts. I hope you'll take advantage of all those. Of course, there are paid resources too. So if we can help you in those ways, we'd be happy to do it. We hope that you will come back for another episode of these questions, and I hope you'll take advantage of all of what we have to offer here on From Bud to Boss.
New leaders encounter many difficult and often uncomfortable challenges and changes during their initial transition to leadership. Perhaps it's two employees who are constantly bickering and it's starting to affect their work. As their coworker, maybe you could ignore it, but now you're their supervisor. Or maybe a new direct report has way more experience than you do and is pushing back on some of your task assignment and delegation attempts. Or perhaps there are supervisory responsibilities that you just don't know how to handle. Making the transition to leadership is one of the most challenging life events we'll ever face. And while there's no doubt that this transition is extremely challenging, there are solutions that can help ease the stress and set you up for success now and in the future. Bud to Boss is a powerful and interactive workshop for new supervisors who want to grow their leadership skills fast. In just 2 days, you'll learn how to expertly handle all of your new challenges, including how do I get a better understanding of my new role and responsibilities? How do I gain respect, trust, and credibility in my new role? What is the best way to communicate about difficult issues? How do I really lead a team? How do I do performance reviews? How can I manage my time and juggle an ever-changing list of priorities? How do I communicate with new peers that have way more experience than I do? What's the best way to delegate effectively? And lots more. Don't risk your career by stumbling along at the start, learning through trial and error. Get the essential management and leadership techniques and strategies you need to succeed with the Bud to Boss workshop. Click on the button below to learn more. The skills you need to succeed are one click away.